Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this Blitz chess postmortem video. This is a postmortem of my Blitz chess game number 32. I played the Slav defense. So let's take a look, see how this happened. It was d4, d5, c4, c6. That's the Slav defense. Just supporting the pawn in the center and leaving a line open for this bishop. The other way to play this is to play e6, which is just the regular queen's gambit declined. This is also a declined variation. If you take the pawn, that's called the queen's gambit accepted. But I play this, the Slav defense. My opponent played knight c3, maybe slightly less common. I usually play the knight f3 line. And the reason is, at this point, black does have the option of playing e5, where if the knight was on f3, e5 would be completely ruled out. And even here, if you play e5, it's a gambit. So you don't really need to be too afraid of it, but it's a gambit I'm not particularly familiar with. So if you play knight f3, it's just a way of avoiding that gambit altogether. Don't have to worry about it. So that's what I do. And knight f6 from black is my normal response here. I don't play that gambit myself, although maybe I should check it out sometime. Might be interesting just for the video experience, if nothing else. And then normally white follows up with knight f3, e3, or even c takes d5. Those are the top moves. What my opponent played was h3. It's very unusual. Doesn't mean it's a bad move. It's just not as forcing as the other lines. And pretty much when you play quiet moves like that, you sort of give up your opening advantage you have as white, and you get into pretty much an even game. But white has some other ideas. He plays c5, and actually I let him get away with a little bit on the queen side. What the computer recommended here was actually playing b6 right away to undermine it. Because with b6, I'm actually threatening to win a pawn. If I take, he takes. The bishop is on that pawn as well. So that's probably the better way to play it. I just sort of ignored it and continued my normal development. But that lets him set up kind of a strong bind here. So starting from a pretty even position, I think white's worked up some kind of advantage here. I castle, he plays a3, and I play knight h5. So far, so good. I'm just harassing this bishop here, and I want to try and contest these dark squares here somehow. And thinking of contesting the dark squares, I played this move, f6. But this is actually a blunder, so here's your first tactical quiz. Black. Your clue is that black just made a terrible mistake. So how do you punish it? You're white. You get to have a move here. What do you play? Okay, if you haven't figured it out yet and you want some time to think about it, pause the video, but I'm going to go ahead and give away the answer. The answer is g4. Play g4, attacking this knight, and the knight has no squares to go to. These two are taken by his own pieces, and these two are covered by the bishop and the pawn and the bishop. So that knight is just trapped, so that would be losing. So that would be a short game, but fortunately my opponent missed that, and the game continues. And that explains actually this crazy move g5. I would not normally play this. This is weakening squares in front of my king and just asking for trouble. But I needed to create a square for my knight to retreat to in case white played g4 on this move. He didn't, but anyway, the game continued like this. And white continues to have a pretty good advantage throughout this part of the game. Maybe it's not so. It's a little bit risky to put your bishop in here. He maybe should have retreated. I tried to block his retreat. Yeah, here was the actual mistake. I tried to block his retreat, and he should have taken this pawn, and that would make this f4 square a little bit weaker, and given him the option of taking it at some point. For example, if I were to try and challenge his bishop with a knight move here. So if you imagine the sequence. Pawn takes pawn, and then I play my bishop here trying to challenge this bishop. That blocks my rook's defense of the f4 square, and he can just play bishop takes pawn there. So it gives him kind of an escape route to go ahead and take that pawn. Instead, he proceeded ahead, kind of logically, with queen a4, just attacking my weak squares over here, and I have to defend. But then I have a few moves to try and organize some harassing moves for the bishop. So I first threaten to trade it with my bishop, and then he goes there, and then I threaten to trade it with my knight. And he plays this move, bishop h5. And this sets up an interesting tactic for black, which it actually got played in the game, so I won't try to make it a mystery. I'll just, looking at it from this position, I'll show you the elements of the tactical idea. The idea is that the knight wants to take this bishop anyway, and after the knight takes that bishop, it's defending this square here. So if I play knight takes bishop and white plays bishop takes rook with check, normally I have to respond to that, but in this case I can just take back with a knight, and I've gathered up two bishops for one rook, and that's an advantage for me. The two bishops in particular, are worth a lot more than a single rook. So so this was good. He did not have to take the rook. He could have just taken the knight instead, and that would have maintained an advantage for white. After he takes the knight, then I move the rook away, and it's only a small advantage to white. I try to round up that pawn, and my pawns are weak here, so there would be offsetting weaknesses and a long game in store. But he took the rook, which was the actual mistake, and then I took back, and so I've gathered two bishops for the rook. So now he takes the pawn on f4, which is a good idea, weakening my structure here, and starts going after some more of my backwards and weak pawns. Fortunately for me, I can push that one forward because I've got the knight and the bishop lined up on it. So he starts bringing his queen around to my weakened king side to cause trouble over there, takes some pawns to open up lines. All very logical play from white here. And attacking my knight. And then he plays f3, attacking my knight yet again. So now it's black's turn to have a really good move that I missed. So you're black. Imagine you are black. It's your turn to move. What's a killer move here? Okay, if you want more time to think about it, go ahead and pause the video. The killer move here is knight to f6. And the thing is, from f6, the knight attacks the queen. And where is the queen going? The knight's going to be hitting that square. This square is covered by the bishop and the knight. The square is covered by the rook. This square is covered by the pawn. The square is covered by the bishop. The square is covered by the queen. That's covered by the king. That's covered by the queen. This one is covered by the knight. The knight from that square also covers that escape square. So, and then that's covered by the king. So that queen is just completely trapped after the move knight f6, which I didn't notice. That's something, I play these 10-minute blitz games so that I have enough time to notice a few things like that, but I don't always stop to think. So knight to g3, and after I played knight g3 and he took, I realized I had actually overlooked something, which is now his rook and his queen are coordinating on my bishop, and that's only defended once, so it's hanging, and so I don't have time to take his rook back. I'll just lose a piece. But fortunately for me, there's an escape. Also a very handy tactical trick. If you can escape with check, then your opponent is forced to respond, and then you can take back the piece like you meant to do originally. So I managed to escape all of that and maintain my two-bishop lead. He goes back to h1, and now I just get the queens off because I want to simplify the game a bit, and also I need to activate my rook. So I'm getting my bishop out and trying to get the rook active. And I notice here that actually I've been trying to set this up for a few moves. The king is in a box. This bishop guards that square, this pawn guards that square, and so all I need to do is play my rook down here, and that's checkmate. Now my opponent spotted that and immediately moved his rook to c1 to defend against it. And I tried to come around this way to checkmate from this side, but now he's threatening to take here with check and pick up this bishop, which would give an escape square for the king, so I can't let that happen. So I had to defend the pawn and attack his rook, and now I let him get away with a tactic here. He finds this nice skewer here where he's going to win that pawn, which I was counting on to help checkmate. So if we back up one, this bishop move was a mistake. I was trying to get out of this pin, but I should have first moved my king and attacked his rook and not allowed that skewer. Okay, so I play there, he skewers me and picks up a pawn. Good play, but I still have a slight advantage, and now I go to work on these pawns, trying to advance them. And I play bishop a6. forgetting that this pawn was hanging. So bishop a6 is not a good move. Probably something like rook to e6, defending that pawn might be a way to play, or even just advancing this pawn from c6 to c5. That would be a way to play. A lot of ways to play other than what I did. So he takes there, and now I'm down to one pawn, but I'm going to push it. He threatens mate, and always a good idea to threaten mate when you can. And everybody should know this pattern. Check here, I go there, check here, I go back, and then the second rook comes here and delivers checkmate. So the two rooks there, mate the king. So I defend, and he goes after the pawn, and I push, and I take. There was one more chance. I had a better move than taking that pawn. So here's another tactical quiz for you. What's a good move for black? Now notice when I take the pawn, I'm losing this bishop here. So that's one consideration. You need to make a bigger threat than that, I guess, is the way to look at it. If you make if your opponent makes a threat and you can make a bigger threat, that's the way to come out on head. Okay, pause the video if you want time to think about it. I'm going to give away the answer. It's this interesting move, bishop to c7. And now if he takes the bishop, your bigger threat is checkmate. You see, the bishop guards that square. And so the rook on the back rank is checkmate. So in this position, after bishop to c7, what can white play? He can't move this rook. He can't come down to the back rank with it and defend, and any other move allows me to checkmate. So he's got to hold this rook in place. He could defend it with the rook here or rook here. Say it's rook here. Logical way to defend. And he may be thinking that, well, I'll just trade and he'll win the exchange and this will still be under attack. I mean, I will win the exchange, but he will still be attacking my bishop, and it's okay. But I have an even stronger response, which is to check here, drive the king to this diagonal, and then to come back here and attack the rook. And now this rook is pinned, so it can't move at all, and there's no other defenders that can come up and defend it, so I'm just going to win a whole piece here. So that would be pretty much winning. So here he played a5. I played bishop takes a5 instead. And now this is really white's last chance. No, not here. He defends against the idea of this pawn becoming a queen by doubling his rooks. This is good. And then I push the pawn, and then he plays this move rook d7. So this really was the last mistake. After this I can trade, and then I'm just winning. But instead he could have played the move rook takes here. Is a new variation. And my idea when he played there is I wanted to deliver this check and then queen the pawn. But if I queen the pawn, he can take there and then take this bishop, and actually he's ahead. He'll be a rook, and I'll have a rook and 2 pawns, and he'll have a rook and 3 pawns, and white will be winning. So the only way I can save this is again to move the bishop with check, and he can block, and then I can queen, and then he can take the queen, and now I have, and then he can take this pawn, and I have a rook and a bishop. I can defend that bishop, so I won't lose it. Even though it's pinned, at least I can defend it. But he's got 2 pawns, well, 3 altogether, and I have a bishop and 1 pawn, so he has 2 extra pawns for the bishop. And this is actually going to be a very hard game to win. All he has to do is trade off my pawn for one of his, and the rook and bishop versus rook is the draw. So that was his last chance to win. When he played rook d7, then that gives me the opportunity to trade off, and then this is finally an easy win, because he can't really stop me from queening except by giving up his rook. And then I'll just mop up with my extra pieces. So he resigns at this point. Good game, Surfman, and hope everybody enjoyed that. If you have any comments, leave them in the section below, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.